Hello, everyone. Welcome back to an Infinity N5 initial reaction, this time for O12. But today is a very special episode as we have our very first guest on the channel, Tristan from the Loss of Lieutenant podcast. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. Dante's been taking the field by storm, and he's managed to secure the number one B tier Loss of Lieutenant podcast host. So I'm very excited to assist you with O12 tonight.
Fantastic. I'd be absolutely shocked if anyone listening didn't was watching my channel but didn't know about Loss of Lieutenant. For anyone who doesn't know, it's an Australian-based Infinity podcast. You guys do a lot of stuff from covering new releases, tournaments. You guys just released a really great episode on building a good table with a couple guests. That's a fantastic episode for anyone who wants to, get into Infinity, or anyone from America in general.
Especially the Midwest, it seems, I'm hearing.
Yeah, had some fiery responses on Crit Post, which doesn't boost YouTube engagement, but we'll take it.
No, it doesn't. It does absolutely nothing for us.
So I've been playing O12 kind of vaguely for a couple years, and you've been playing them for a fair bit as well. Is that right, Tristan?
Yeah, they were. So I played before I kind of got into tournaments and stuff. I played for a while, and O12 was kind of the first faction that I really took to events. So I've taken them to a lot of. I've taken them to 3 2-day events at this point.
Mm.
And done pretty well with them. Pretty okay with them. But yeah, it's my baby faction. It's my one and only.
Fantastic. All right. Well, before we jump into Infinity Army to see a look at what they've got for N5, let's take a look at where we're coming from. So, Tristan, what do you think defines O12 for you?
For me, I think you've summarized it very well. O12 is the I can do everything pretty well, but I am not the master of everything. I'm not shooting as well as Pano, I'm not hacking as well as Aleph, but I'm pretty above average on those things.
Mm. Yeah, I think
And
you do have a bit of everything. You say you're not great at anything in particular, but what you are bringing is high quality. It's not like you're a
mm,
jack of all trades where you're showing up with a little bit of everything that's a bit shit. Everything you have is actually quite good. Everything you have is quite lean as well, so you're not overpaying for much. Uh, you
yes,
look at a Cyber Ghost, you're getting a high whip, a high BTS, and pitchers, not much else, but you don't need much else, and you're still one of the better models in that role.
yeah, 100%. And that goes for a lot of profiles following a very similar vein. Things like the Omega or the Gamma are just they don't have any fat on them. They're just good at shooting. You have the cheapest training command in the game, so it does its role.
Mm.
You've got just a variety of really efficient hackers. The tag is a tag for tag points.
Yeah, and another thing is you've got very strong ablative defensive elements with different mine layers and different camo markers, and also pretty strong peripherals who you're happy to kind of throw away in a trade or just something to make your opponent's life difficult without throwing away orders.
Absolutely, and in N5, that's evolved a little bit for O12 having probably the best turrets in the game.
Mm.
Um, so the Lambda gets a +1 burst adhesive launcher rifle turret, which is incredibly good.
There's also that very interesting Thunderbolt turret on the jackboot. But we'll kind of
There
see
is
that
there is an
as we
AP
go.
Thunderbolt
Yeah.
turret.
One of the turrets of all time. Uh, in terms of the more weaknesses of O12, you've got very few sort of cheerleader type units. I think it's less of a problem now than it was maybe early to mid N4, where you could struggle to sort of fit everything in a list. Um, you're not necessarily even wanting to take that many cheerleaders with how many strong slots you've got. But if you're really trying to put together an elite list, that might be a road bump you come across.
Yeah, O12 is really one of those factions you can fall into the trap of almost making a combined army style list where it's too top heavy.
Mm.
And once those pieces get taken out, you're not combined army. You don't have extreme efficiency with every single unit. If you're taking two flash pulses and two baggage bots and, like regular cappers, they're not going to be they're not those amazing units that you can do everything you want with. You'll just sit
Mm.
there and go, "Oh, great, I've got some SMGs left in my DZ and everything else is dead."
Yeah, I guess you have a weird point with a lot of units where they can do something, but it's either you're paying too much for what you want it to do if it's just sitting in your deployment zone, where you're really looking at a Kappa and going, I kind of just wish you were an Ikadron. So that's
Yes.
sort of you're not, a Kappa's great at a lot of things, but sitting in your deployment zone probably isn't one of them. Or if you've taken just a 10-point Kappa to fill some space, it's not a great use of points either. Or a slot for that matter.
It's a very long-winded way of saying that you need to make your slots count in O12.
Definitely. I think the last weakness is, at the end of the day, you're still a vanilla faction, and you can struggle to put up hard AROs, especially in that first turn, if you're on the defensive. And I think, really you just need to make sure you've got enough of those ablative elements to make sure you don't get overrun going second in that first round.
Yeah, in if you're forced to go second as O12, there's an amount of calculated loss that you need to accept. So you need to force your opponent to actually fight certain units that are going to be more order intensive for them, but you can't try and protect everything. Because then you're going to have certain units in the game that will just roll through your deployment zone because you won't be able to stop any of it.
Yeah. So O12 and N4, they changed very little over the edition, but formed pretty consistently well. I remember joking with someone that they were the most top of B tier faction of all time. The reinforcements and Torchlight Brigade models sort of came in, did a decent bit, especially the reinforcements models, but nothing that really revolutionized the faction in my eyes.
Yeah, I think the number one thing there is probably Moonrakers. Unfortunately, we lost the Beast Hunter from the N4 to N5 transition, but having, again, as you said, that ablative defense in the midfield is very, very important. So if we didn't have those Moonrakers, we'd be in a much more troubled position.
Yeah, you'd still be spamming two gangbusters in every list and hoping for the best.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, fantastic. Well, now that we've seen where we're coming from, let's find out where we're going. All right, everyone, and here we are in Infinity Army for N5. We have the fire teams chart for O12, where you've got two fire team duos and one Harris. Important to note, the Harris is no longer locked to reinforcements. You can see your O12 fire teams 2 has that Harris option. And there's quite a lot of good options here, but we might get to them as the units themselves come up. So the first unit, we have the Kappa. And Tristan, I believe there's one little tear rolling down your eye at the moment. Would that be correct? For a certain profile?
Yes. Probably deservedly so. So in vanilla, realistically, the only Kappa you were taking was the formerly 12-point Kappa Hacker, which is now 13 points. 13 points for a Whip 13 regular hacker is still pretty good, though. So
yeah, I mean, is it the cheapest regular hacker in the game still? Probably.
It's damn close.
Yeah, I mean the amount of
I'm failing to think of another one. There is the other one that comes to mind is a Nox for 14 points.
So it's
but
still
they're
saying
14 points base.
O12 number 1.
O12 number 1.
Yeah. I mean, look, it has gone up a point. The amount of value the Kappa hack is going to bring you is a lot more than that points value. And other points have been shuffled around and gone down as well. So it probably won't affect your list building too much. It's still an excellent piece. And I'm sure everyone's playing the world's smallest violin for the 1-point hacker increase. But yeah, look, as you said, I don't think you're taking any other Kappa profile, are you?
No, not really. You're not taking any Swick weapons. You're not taking a paramedic. You've got better paramedic options. I mean, maybe a deployable repeater if you're really, I don't know, feeling a bit weird, but
I mean,
no,
if you
you're
look
just
at the
taking.
deployable repeater, it's 14 points. That's a Ment FTO. You've just got,
And you could just
yeah.
take a hacker.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's very true. All right, well, I think we might move on from the Kappa to the Bluecoats, Naval Security Detachment. Tristan, are they still bad?
I've never taken one.
Yeah, I
I've
mean,
never, ever taken one.
I've sort of looked at taking one a few times just because I like the model. Uh, they've sort of had a weird shuffle around. They can't really duo with anything. They're not a specialist operative. And BS12, I mean, you could take one as your white noise shooter, but again, you've just got so many better options to take over the blue coat. I don't see
Well, you
this.
can take literally
Yeah,
anything as a white noise shooter. So,
yeah. Bring back the Kappa Hacker. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. No, I think the blue coat's unfortunately still pretty bad. Might just move on to the Lynx, uh, who also hasn't changed very much. The specialist operative's got an assault pistol, which is nice, and I do quite like the plasma carbine. Um, but otherwise, I don't know. I've never really been incredibly impressed with these guys.
I feel like you're more as you saying ablative, but also your hidden deploy arrows are probably going to be more valuable coming into this edition.
Mm,
And the Lynx is a pretty good example of a hidden deploy unit. It doesn't get a template like a heavy missile launcher or something like that.
mm,
Um, but for 31 points, getting a MIM 6 HD sniper, and you're not paying for that infiltration.
mm.
So it again, it is just really lean, and it is a pretty decent option if you're scared of, Liang Kai or something, and you just really have to delay orders and
Mm.
maybe kill him in one shot if you get lucky, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, BS13 is also somewhat unusually high for a hidden deployment piece. Usually
Yes.
they swim around BS12. We have seen some other BS13 hidden deployment units, but they don't tend to be the ones carrying such heavy weapons.
Yep.
I quite like the. Yeah, I do quite like the multi sniper. The plasma carbine is a template you could whip out. Usually when you're looking at a hidden deployment shot at something, you generally want to wait until the last possible moment to take that shot, so your opponent wastes the maximum amount of orders. I could see an argument for taking that plasma carbine to take that shot with that template as well could be interesting. But I
Yep.
guess you're less likely to see those big link teams stomping up the table now, though. So having that template could be less relevant than an N4 as well, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. The great thing for O12 is that there's way less templates in general,
Mm,
and you'll see throughout this that O12 really has below average physique, and if you're face to facing more often, it means you're using your above average BS more often,
mm,
which is just going to be better for you.
that's very true. Also, one little fun rules change with the Cybermine now triggers on non-hackable units with a parasave, if I'm remembering correctly.
Uh, uh, a
Stun
flash
save,
pulse
yeah,
save
stun
virtually.
save. That's right. Yeah. So Cybermines aren't totally useless. I don't think that helps the links, but interesting to note.
No.
All right, let's take a look at Team Sirius, who've gotten a decent points decrease of
One
about
point.
1 point only. Oh,
One
okay.
point.
I thought it was a bigger amount of points. I've quite liked the Team Sirius historically, and I think those templates going down does work in its favor, where the Sirius bot with the template has a bit more value otherwise. Uh, yeah, I've always liked the Team Sirius. It's lost a template in the boarding shotgun, which was the forward observer boarding shotgun, which was the one I'd usually take.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on the Sirius?
Um, I I feel like we don't see it as often as we used to, because we don't see as many hacking focused O12 lists. But if you're
Hmm.
going to take a team serious, you're going to want 3 to 4 hackers. you're going to want to be able to stop an Asura walking into your own repeater net and blasting everything.
Mm.
So don't willy-nilly take a team serious.
No, definitely not.
If you do want to take it, it is purely for those hacking lists. Or if you have absolutely no hackers, that's kind of fine as well.
Yeah.
It's not incredibly amazing. Anything forward deploy and no camo is always going to have play around it. Your opponent's always going to have an idea of how to deal with it. The serious bot is cool, and again, it is that ablative defense. If they spend 2 orders killing the serious bot, that's kind of a win for you. So don't be super picky about trying to be protective of the serious bot. I would just kind of force your opponent to deal with it.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of
Um,
the no camo, a common trap is to take the hacking device team serious, thinking it's going to go really well with their serious bot. But the amount of times I've played that hacking team serious, someone just iced the serious controller with a Trinity and deactivated the whole unit. I'd
yeah.
really be leaning more towards that forward observer if you do want to make that hacking heavy list.
Well, you don't want to spend 24 points for a 0 BTS whip 13 hacker in O12.
No, definitely
That's
not.
that. It's not a good use of your points when you've got a Cyber Ghost for 3 points less.
Mm.
And you can still maintain that repeater with just taking the forward observer one.
Mm. One thing I am potentially anticipating is for heavy infantry to be more popular going into N5, where most of them have had a pretty significant points drop. So I can see that repeater bringing some more value where, yeah, those heavy infantry I think might be more popular at the start of N5.
That's definitely a possibility. You can use it to just try and protect your DZ. You don't always have to push it the full forward deploy. You could
Mm.
have the serious bot the full or however far up you want and kind of pull the actual team serious back a little bit and just use it for that hacking defense.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm.
which
Yeah.
might end up being necessary depending on how the meta evolves. Because realistically, you're not going to have the AROs to stop, you know, a Sheshkin running across the table or
Or
that
like a
kind of thing,
Hectari.
or a Hectari. Yeah, the big pano shooters, or even tags. Like if you're not able to stop a tag from just running into your DZ,
Mm.
um, you need to reconsider your list.
Mm. Yeah. All right. Well, Team Serious still pretty solid. No major changes. And don't bring the hacker. On to Lawkeepers. I think these guys have taken a little bit of a hit with the change in the motorcycle rules. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm really sad about the motorcycle rules. So making it limited cover or no cover with the impetuous is kind of fine. I'm really sad that they can't get off the bike anymore,
Mm.
which means that a motorbike unit can't engage with someone prone on a roof because they have no way of getting up.
Mm.
Um, which that limitation for me really makes me not want to take bikes because I know my opponent can just go, here's an important unit, I put it prone on a roof. Um,
Cry about it.
yeah,
Yeah.
like your guy's not doing anything. For the
Mm.
Lawkeeper specifically, he's dropped about 4 points across the board. Um, look, he's BS12, and most of the time things are just going to be shooting at them on flats because of mimetism.
Mm.
So you're either treating him as a cheap, fast, expendable specialist or a 25-point Red Fury. But, I mean, that's expensive
Mm.
for just BS12.
I mean, I always felt like this guy was competing pretty directly with the road bot. I think the
He
road
is
bot,
now, absolutely.
yeah, I think the road bot was already sort of winning that fight, and I
Oh,
think,
absolutely.
yeah, I think the road bot's absolutely on top. The Lawkeeper's kind of eating shit. Road bot
Yeah,
supremacy.
and the road bot is like you're not having to hide a fat base either. With this,
Yeah,
you're hiding a fat base, and it just sucks.
yeah. So yeah, Lawkeepers, not good. Onto something
Not
really
particularly.
good. We got the Ment Agent. Where the
Uh,
cheapest one dropped a point.
well, there's a new profile.
Mm.
So instead of a heavy riot stopper +2 burst, it's a heavy riot stopper +1 burst.
Yeah, and
And
importantly, it's an FTO profile as well, which is a new addition.
yes,
And it's
I'm not.
actually, I
I'm not
think
sure if it's.
it's,
I don't think it's linkable in vanilla.
well, you might say that. However, if you look down
Oh, it
here in the
is.
cheeky O12 Fire Teams 2, you've got the Ment Agent.
You do, but it doesn't say FTO Dante, so you can take whichever one you want.
Yeah, it's sort of like the Corregidor Vostok can take whatever Vostok it wants. Uh, I think I'd probably just be angling for the cheapest Ment possible. If you got a point spare, I guess give it an additional burst on the Heavy Riot Stopper.
So, there's two schools of thought.
Mm.
You're probably taking one in every list. I'll say that.
Yeah, I think that's
14-point chain of
correct.
command is the cheapest in the game. And the plethora of good LT options in O12 is ginormous. So you can really, with this 14-point chain of command, you can take an active LT and use it without feeling too bad. The other regard is you want to use your slots as efficiently as possible, so you can double up on the role of having chain of command and a hacker and take the Ment hacker.
It's a
And it
dangerous
kind of
game, though, isn't it?
Yes, it is. You can double up the role of having that chain of command and virtually have that Kappa hacker as well in one role. So long as you're confident in you having the hacking supremacy or dedicating orders to getting the hacking supremacy, I think it's fine.
Yeah, no, I think it's fine as well. I just think you do have to be careful. And I can see you getting blown out pretty hard if you haven't prepared appropriately. But yeah, squishing those two slots into one at still quite a cheap price point is pretty nice.
Yeah.
But I think the way I'm sort of viewing a lot of O12 fire teams is you've got the opportunity to sort of take a lot of units you were taking anyway and sort of just staple them together. So I can see we've got the Vidok profile up next, but I could see you taking maybe 2 Vidoks and a Ment as a Harris, or maybe 2 Jack Boots and a Ment, but we'll talk more to that as we get to them. The Ment, I think it's a profile that doesn't warrant too much conversation just because of how obviously good it is. You are feeling a bit of slot pressure, that's true, so you might want to squish into that hacker like Tristan said, but be careful with it. And we might just move on to the Vidok. Alright, so I don't think much has changed with the Vidok. You've still got the 4 profiles with 3 FTO and 1 non-FTO. The Vidok camouflage marker, did you ever get any use out of that in vanilla?
I never played a Vidok in vanilla, but I can definitely see the use of it if you're kind of clever with your mine layers. Your opponent won't expect there to be a Vidok multi-sniper. By that same token, if you're using it to ARO, don't expect it to live. So typically in O12, if you're building in the hacking direction, you're only going to have at max 2 guns. And having one of those guns on something so
Wet paper
easily
bag.
killable, yeah, it is a bit of a paper mache. Might not be the best idea. So yeah, only really use the camo one if you're going to be able to hide it properly. Other than that, you're taking the other 3 pretty regularly if you want to take little duos and Harrises in vanilla.
Yeah, I mean, I've found a decent bit of use out of the Vidok camo multi-sniper. In that, it's sort of like the Intruder multi-sniper, which, is still a lot of points for a pretty wet bag. But dropping it as your reserve piece and just having your opponent know it's there, but not be able to directly engage it without some maneuvering, has a pretty powerful effect on how they spend their orders. And also even potentially how they use their impetuous. So I find it good as sort of a mind games pressure piece. But yeah, once it reveals and kills something, it's usually next on the chopping block. I think what's more interesting is these FTO profiles, being available for the duos and Harrises. I think maybe one of your better Harris options could be the Ment FTO, Vidok Doctor, and the Vidok Sniper as kind of a way to cheat in an extra duo with the Ment who you were sort of taking anyway. You are locked to only 2 duos, and a Harris does need 3 to form. So I sort of like taking those 2 Vidoks and that Ment Agent to sort of cheat it as a third duo.
Yep, you definitely could. And even in that regard, against some factions, the Vidoc's actually going to be a really difficult ARO piece to deal with.
Mm.
And if you're playing against a faction that really is going to be able to deal with it well, you just use it in that active turn piece, and you've given extra burst to corner guards with shotguns, effectively.
Yeah. I think, when you take that burst 1 up to a burst 2, your chances of actually hitting improve astronomically. Having MIM -3 and multispectral visor tends to tip things in your favor, where either you're stripping their MIM, you're making their shot harder, or even both. It's a pretty strong combination. I think that extra burst really pushes the Vidok into a more survivable state. And having a doctor around is pretty nice as well. You have pretty high quality paramedics in O12, but I found myself less likely to be fielding any doctors, but this one slides in a pretty nice spot. What do you think?
Yeah, I like it. Depending on what you're spending your Swick on, it's definitely good. If you're taking multiple heavy weapons, it's definitely number 2 or number 3 on the list. But it wouldn't be the first gun I reach for. But
No.
it's definitely a good option.
Yeah, MSV1 is a weird spot when it comes to active turn guns for O12, because usually you've got 2 little check boxes on your list building, MSV2 gun and non-MSV gun. So the Vidok is kind of in a weird mid spot where it's not great at smoke shooting, and it's not going to be shooting through white noise either. So yeah, I agree. I think it is sort of in that third or fourth pick in terms of gun.
We'll get up to it at some point, but if you're taking a Vidok, it probably means you're either wanting the burst bonus in reactive, or it's too expensive for you to take an Epsilon.
Yeah, very much so. All right, well, let's move on to Psychops, who've had a few changes. They've got Combat Instinct, which is the de-nested 6th Sense. Do you want to tell us a bit about that, Tristan?
Combat Instinct means that you ignore surprise attack mods.
And that's it.
Pretty sure that's it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a weird rule on a model I wouldn't really anticipate having on ARO personally. It's picked up an X-Visor, which is all right. I mean, it's cool considering I think one model got a pretty interesting new piece of kit, being the Killer Hacker with the Disco Baller.
Disco Baller is a very nice piece of kit.
I mean, usually in O12, you're pretty fond of your smoke and white noise. How do you think an Eclipse template is sort of going to fit into the O12 game plan?
Well, white noise requires you to carry around a repeater somewhere. Smoke is still vulnerable to certain things. The Disco Baller just has the benefit of one, it shoots 2 shots in one order, and it just ignores everything. So if you really need to get onto an objective, it's just, it's going to be more beneficial than maybe effing around with smoke.
That's true, and I think the X-Visor is actually really valuable with the Disco Baller, just to peg it up to that 24 inches. That's really far on a BS13 with double shot, or maybe even just declaring one shot with a duo bonus. It's pretty reliable out to 24.
It's pretty reliable. Unfortunately, Dante, you aren't allowed to declare one shot. You have to use the double shot trait. But if you're in a duo, one of those shots will get a reroll.
Oh, okay. Very interesting. All right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, we can maybe talk a bit about Psychop duos later. They've got an armed turret Thunderbolt option on the multi-marksman rifle, multi-spectral visor level 1. Did you ever end up taking any of these multi-marksman Psychops?
More so in Starmada
Mm.
because they were linked really cheap. Vanilla O12 not so much. I think you might see them now. They do embody that toolbox unit. They weren't all specialists. They had specific specialist profiles, I believe. But now you're taking a multi-marksman with 2 templates and with a turret that gets MSV and an X visor and mimetism and is a specialist. It's just one of those units that can do a little bit of everything, and you can pour 8 or 10 orders into this little duo, and you're not having to like, it focuses you on a point, and not having to think about, I have to activate different units in a different order, almost like a chess game, to get what I need done. You're going to have a lot more success in general spending 8 to 10 orders on this guy, and he can do everything that I need him to do.
Also, being zero Swick is pretty relevant in O12. You're not under like a massive Swick pressure, but by the time you pick up your 2 guns, maybe your mine layers, you don't usually have that much left for secondary or kind of third-rate guns. I think the Psychop fills that role pretty well, and picking up Specialist Operative opens some pretty nice duo options with a Varangian, or even another Psychop if you're looking for that burst bonus.
Absolutely.
Alright, well let's move on to the Alpha units, who's got a little bit of a glow up, if that's even possible. Can you improve on perfection? I guess the answer is yes. With the chain of command profile getting a pretty significant points drop.
As is deservedly so. I'm not sure why Chain of Command cost 4 points more than the Lieutenant, but it did.
Yeah, no, that was strange. I mean, look, the Alpha Lieutenant, it's probably one of the best lieutenants in O12, if not the game. Where do you see this chain of command profile fitting in, if you think it fits in at all?
It doesn't. I think 2 Chain of Command is overkill, and if you want Chain of Command, you take the Ment. The only time you're going to take the Alpha is if you want the Lieutenant bonuses. And that, I mean, that's going to be up to you. I'm not sure if it's even the best Lieutenant in O12, but yeah, I don't think you're ever seeing the Chain of Command.
Yeah, I mean, you're paying 10 points for counterintelligence, is how I look at it. And I think that's probably a bit much.
It's super fat.
Yeah. I mean, the amount of times I've been playing the Alpha unit as my Lieutenant, and somebody's climbed up a weird building on an angle and gone, yeah, I can see the back of his ass hanging out there.
Yeah.
Innumerable. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Alpha. We won't be using your chain of command profile. You're still the GOAT. Cyber Ghosts. These guys haven't really changed at all, I don't think.
They're exactly the same.
Yeah, I mean, probably deserving. Whip 14 BTS 6. They're your only hacking device plus in the game. I think you probably see one of these guys in every O12 list you build or come across. I don't think
pretty reliably, I would say.
Yeah.
White noise is just massive.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so hard to leave home without white noise in O12. Alright, next the Lambda, where the engineer has gotten some additional profiles. Every engineer has got a deployable cover profile and some kind of turret profile, except this one is an armed turret +1 burst adhesive launcher rifle. How do you think this stacks up to the normal just combi rifle reaction bots?
I think it's one of the best turrets in the game because it's going to hit you hard no matter what unit you are. You can be a tag. You only need to fail 1 save against this, and it's locked you down. So this is an equal opportunist turret. And I would be, if I have any reason to take an engineer, I would be taking this all the time.
Really?
It is incredible. Yes.
Very interesting.
Yeah,
I mean, usually I'd be tending towards the Monstrucker, just for the cheaper points cost, but I guess not having that Monstrucker around anymore, the Lambda does look pretty nice.
You still have the Monstrucker.
Ah, oopie. Well, yeah, I mean,
So there is about a 4 point difference between this turret profile and the Monstrucker turret profile.
mm,
Um, yeah, the whole idea of this turret is some pieces are going to just be able to ignore a regular turret or take those face to faces multiple times. This
mm,
turret will lock down a H-Giant, it'll lock down light infantry, it'll lock down a tag, it'll lock down a MIM6 stupid infiltrator. It it doesn't care. It just goes for you.
mm,
And sometimes you just roll nice, and then that tag is not doing anything for the rest of the turn, and it's still glued in your turn.
mm.
So yeah, it's incredible. It's incredible.
Also worth noting, the armed turrets, they're disposable, but get reloaded with baggage. And baggage is changed now, where your models get automatically reloaded in the states phase. So over 3 turns, you can just sort of shit these little turrets out. And I can imagine that to be potentially pretty annoying. And I think you've sold me on it, Tristan. Those are some pretty good points about it hitting everything sort of no matter what. Next up, the Raven Eye. I don't think this guy has changed at all, really. You're still only probably going to see the EM mine profiles, even though the Cyber Mine has changed a bit. I think the EM mine is still just so much more valuable.
Yeah, EM mine's just infinitely more valuable.
Yeah. We'll move on to Ensign Catherine Cho. Where did Catherine fit in your lists towards the end of N4? Because I know for me personally, she'd kind of been phased out with the release
Yeah, I
of
was
the
gonna.
Mint and such.
Yeah, I don't think I'm ever taking her. I don't think I ever have taken her.
Mm.
Um,
I mean,
it's
she,
nice that she got
yeah,
a multi rifle. But a 15 point whip 14 lieutenant is actually kind of below average in O12, and a 20 point chain of command is below average in O12, which sounds ridiculous. Um, if
and
you really
probably
want to
is.
play weird mind games, like take Cho chain of command and hide it as Hector or something,
Mm.
um, but it's not worth it. Yeah, it's not worth it. Like it's a little bit of fun, but you have better options.
I mean, the 15-point lieutenant is pretty cheap, but at that point, are you sort of just more looking towards the Raven Eye?
Yes, if you have
Yeah.
chain of command, you may as well do that anyway.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. All right, Pravati. She got a little bit of a points decrease, and the super jump changes are nice. So jump is now just a standard 6 inches for everyone, and you can jump with super jump, which means Pravati's essentially move 6'6". Uh,
Yes.
Unfortunately, she's not linkable, which I was sort of hoping for, because otherwise she's kind of just a big wad of points in your deployment zone who's good at what she does. I mean, I don't know if the points decreases around the board make a bit more room for her. I mean, do you have any thoughts on Pravati?
I don't think you're taking her unless you're specifically forming a list around her.
Mm,
Um, I mean, there's not going to be a lot of cases where you need a really good engineer and a really good doctor.
mm,
She doesn't provide anything except that. She might be quick as a specialist, but you have other quick specialists, and
yeah.
she only has a burst for SMG and a flash pulse for 36 points. So if you really don't need uber healing, which you're not going to, like if you're
Mm,
taking your engineer, you're taking whatever, maybe a paramedic or whatever, you don't need it.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, she's nice in that she can, with remote presence and structure, she can take a hit and then engineer herself back up. Um, and that's sort of we've sort of seen a few like NWI doctors sort of get changed to avoid that. Maybe that's something CB thought was too good. If someone did something with Pravati, I wouldn't be surprised. But yeah, I don't know. It's just a weird point to be at.
Yeah, Pravati isn't bad. She's just expensive.
Yeah, very expensive. And I think what you said is right about when do you need a doctor and an engineer. maybe if you're taking like a Gamma on ARO and some Moonrakers if you want to get them back up, but yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think you're right. If you're taking Pravati, you're probably building the list around her rather than going, Eureka, I need a doctor engineer.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, on to the Monstruckers, who I definitely didn't forget you were here, guys. Uh, they, they've also got they've got the armed turret profile and the drop bears as well. I think this EM grenades, I don't think that's new. And a weird 360 visor profile, which I do think is new.
It's
Uh,
not new. You just never took it.
yeah, I believe that. So these guys are competing pretty directly with the Lambda, where 4 points is getting you a regular order and the glue turret. The Monstrucker was it was an irregular model where you were happy to spend the irregular order just putting down a drop bear somewhere. But yeah, with that new glue turret with the Lambda, I mean that's pretty sweet. I still like the drop bears. I still like the chain rifle as a template. I quite like the AP rifle. So I might still be in team Monstruckers personally, but I think you're right. The
That's
Lambda is
fine.
very good.
The Monstrucker, if you're not taking the turret Lambda, you may as well take the 12-point Monstrucker.
Mm.
It's just cheaper, and as you say, its order is pretty much always useful. And there's not a massive amount of command token tax on O12, so you're not feeling too bad about converting it, once throughout the game if you want to.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to say like 4 points is not insignificant. It's nearly 20% the cost of the profile. So if you need those 4 points, you can just downgrade the turret to the Monstrucker version.
O12 economics at its finest.
Well, sometimes you need those 4 points.
Yeah, that's
but yeah,
true.
it's realistically it is the better engineer. It is one whip less, but it is that toolboxy. I do multiple things. I still have a template. I have drop bears. I go suppressive. I have climbing plus, which is worse in this edition, but still can be very useful.
Yeah, so climbing plus has been changed. Before with climbing plus, you just sort of you could declare a move and use it to go up a building. Now you have to actually declare the climb skill as a short skill, like you would with jump and super jump. So you need to be at the base of a building to climb, which is significantly worse.
Yes.
I don't think it affects the Monstruckers too much, but there are other models we'll get to later where I think it's a decent change to how they functioned.
Yep.
Onto the War Core. It's the same. Everyone loves you. Haven't changed. Never changed.
That's it.
It's still even got Lieutenant level 1. They have not touched this guy. All right, then the Delta unit. He's gotten a little bit cheaper and has picked up super jump jet propulsion.
Yep. He's very speedy now.
He's very, very speedy. I've always liked the Delta. Especially the Doctor profiles, and the Panzerfaust profile was pretty funny if you didn't feel the need to take a specialist. Jumping in behind someone and just shooting a Panzerfaust into their back, it's never going to get old. But yeah, look, I've always found these guys to be pretty solid. I think, yeah, the Doctor with the Yudbot as well, I think that's one you're happy to just risk a jump with as well, with how fast they both are. Both moving 6/6.
Yeah, they both get the super jump. Yeah, and you can just throw that Yudbot wherever you want. So realistically, when you deploy this guy, you might be able to get them next to 2 unconscious models, heal them over 2 orders, which is really nice. I can't say I've ever taken the Doctor because even now a 27-point drop troop is probably too much for me.
Yeah.
The killer hacker is nice. It's always nice having a hacker off the table that your opponent can't remove until you decide to put it on the table.
And usually pushing that killer hacker on their side of the table can get you past a repeater net which is quite valuable.
Yeah, just having the ability to scalpel out some of their, like maybe one of their only killer hacker, and then you go and put out your repeater net, and you're just free to do what you want.
Mm.
Yeah, I can't say I've taken these too much. I take the character version more
Yeah,
often.
yeah. Well, yeah, no,
Um,
I've taken these as kind of a little sprinkling in some lists, but they're not a mainstay by any means.
they are just a solid drop troop, and it is very nice to have the option of them.
Mm. Yeah, and the move 6/6 is pretty nice. On to crushers. Uh were you a crusher truther in your time?
I was actually. I took many a crusher to my first tournaments.
Mm.
Um, and as a fledgling O12 player who knew nothing about, how to play the game, would I take them now? I'm not sure. I think that combat jump profile screams amazing versus the Delta.
Definitely.
Um, if you wanted that boarding shotgun Panzerfaust Delta, it's almost like you want to take this one instead because it's a specialist. It gets mim and a whole extra wound
Oh,
and
I mean, not to
BS.
mention, yeah, ballistic skill, mimetism. Like, yeah, I don't know. It's pretty fantastic compared to the Delta if you do want that specialist.
But the
You're getting a specialist who can also do the funny Panzerfaust hee, which I quite like.
yeah, absolutely.
I
The
think
four deployment variants, I'm not super sold on anymore.
mm, the you'd see the
Yeah.
light rocket launcher a little bit in N4, and it looks like it's gone down half a swick. I believe it used to be a whole swick before.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, I mean, only being burst 2, I never really took it personally. Uh, and yeah, I don't really feel anything towards the multi rifle or submachine gun profiles except waste of points.
Yeah, it just screams, please run a CC specialist into me and let me die.
Yeah, yeah. But no, I'm actually really huge on this crusher. I think as the game's gone on, we've seen just how valuable having a second wound is, because it just makes you bad luck resistant, and that's
Yes.
something that can really stop a drop troop going on a tear. It's just some bad luck. So
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
I quite like it. The one thing you are missing is a template. Oh no, boarding pistol. Never
You
mind.
have a boarding pistol.
Yeah, no, boarding pistols are pretty goated. Um, so yeah, no, I really like the crusher combat jump, and would probably be taking it over the deltas, maybe period. But I'm actually
It'll
very
depend
excited.
on points. Like if you the cheap Delta is only 18 points.
Yeah, that's
Um,
true, but you're not a
sorry,
specialist.
19 points.
Yeah,
You're not a specialist.
yeah. Your
In a
cheapest
mission where it might
specialist.
matter,
Mm, yeah,
if you're playing firefight and you don't want specialists,
mm,
crushers are kind of bad.
yeah. That's very
The
true.
only I'll throw one argument out for the crusher in that you can now spend 2 command tokens going second to strip and suppress.
Mm.
So if the crusher is your reserve drop with the multi rifle, it might be nice to strip their orders and put the crusher in suppressive.
I mean, or even just
It
the
is,
submachine gun. You don't need to shell out, the extra points if you're just putting it on suppressive.
yeah, you could do that. I mean, the naked submachine gun is kind of crap by itself, and the
Yeah.
light rocket launcher doesn't have. You can take it if you want. I mean, it's fine. Um, but
Yeah.
it's an idea. You do kind of want the AP on the multi rifle though.
Yeah, that's very true. So do you think there's some potential in forward deploying and
Uh,
suppressive?
in general, I think so. I played a game yesterday of Vanilla Pano, and my opponent was like, "I'm gonna push you here," and I went, "Huh." I guess I'm not paying for speedball now. I guess I'm paying to put this in suppressive. And then my opponent spent 7 orders trying to deal with it, and it just made me feel happy. But I could also strip orders from their
Mm.
group. So you'll probably see that more often.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's funny. I'm not sure how it's going to pan out, kind of as the edition goes forward. But yeah, I think it's something to try out. All right, on to jackboots. These guys have gotten a lot better. And most of it's been a 1 point increase to their ballistics, which makes me feel a lot better about them.
Yeah, BS12 wasn't right.
Yeah. Yeah, and they were pretty expensive for BS12 as well.
They were incredibly expensive.
Yeah. They're also one of your kind of main duo and Harris options if you're actually trying to get a burst bonus. They've still got... Oh, they've got Immunity Enhanced, which is the whole kind of total immune from last edition. And they've got Warhorse, which is the new veteran skill that's been renamed. It's the same as veteran, except you also ignore BS attack -3, which has become a little bit more prevalent in the game. So that's decent.
A little. Veteran in general is good. They're not going to be
ever
like
really going to come up in O12.
Well, it basically means this guy can walk into an EM mine and not be affected by it.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true.
They've gained. Combat instinct again isn't really a big thing either. +1 damage, it's kind of nice.
Yeah,
I think the big thing for them is they've gained all this and actually dropped in points across the board.
Yeah, that's very true. I think the engineer is probably the standout profile for me. First up, the emitter has changed quite a bit. It's now an EM Thunderbolt. Is the best way I've heard to describe it. So it's got good range bands. It can shut down any HI or hackable targets. And it's got the armed Thunderbolt AP turret. What do you think about that?
It's a spicy turret.
It's a real spicy turret. I mean, such long range bands, that's got to be worth something, right?
It's like, it is like getting a free mini TR bot, effectively, that's reloadable and, just keep putting them down if I want to.
I mean, we'll get to it later, but the reaction bots now have an 18 points Thunderbolt +1 burst. So you can kind of put a price tag on it that it's probably worth around maybe 12 points or so to pop out that Thunderbolt.
It's definitely worth something. Even if your opponent has to spend an order to deal with it, if they have to spend more than one order to deal with it, that's a net positive for you.
Yeah, I think you can just scream Yahtzee and walk away from the table if that happens.
And if it hits you really don't like it. It's not like you're getting hit with just a normal rifle. It's an AP damage 14 Thunderbolt.
Yeah, no, I think it's sick. Do you see yourself taking the heavy machine gun or the heavy rocket launcher?
No. No. Look, okay, cool. You could, if you're taking the engineer, you might take the HRL because it's a cheap ARO piece that will get the special dice. I could see that. The problem is, immunity enhanced is great, but you're still only one wound.
Yeah.
So, sure, you might turn DA to normal ammo, but then you fail the save and you go unconscious. Yeah. And you're like, that's great. So, really, it's 23 points for just a BS13 guy. Is good in some factions. In O12, it's kind of, it's okay. It's fine.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm pretty drawn to the jackboot engineer Thunderbolt AP. I'm also drawn to the +1 burst forward observer with the Thunderbolt and EM carbine. You're never really going to be caught in a bad range band there. And a burst 4 Thunderbolt ain't bad.
Yeah, that's very true. I'm going to hit back with just take 2 engineer Thunderbolt ones because the emitter is as good an ARO piece as you're going to get anyway. So just put down your turret and ARO with the emitter, and if the emitter hits, you're screwed.
Yeah, I mean, I think the emitter is a much better ARO piece than active turn gun, because you can't damage any non-hackable units, but you can still isolate them, so they're really great at stopping an attack run. So I think I'll back you on that, Tristan. I really like that, actually.
And that means you get double the turret.
Which is making the grand assumption that the standing up jackboot doesn't get his head blown off. Could be a good it could be a good thing to leave them down turn 1, both put down a turret, then get one to stand up turn 2. I mean, usually, you know, in a mission like Acquisition, where you've got kind of end of game objectives, people tend to move on those pretty late. So I could see them setting up a good defense sort of mid game that suddenly makes their opponent have to rethink, oh wait, maybe this isn't going to be as easy as I thought.
Yeah, I mean the only problem with that is that they are expensive.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's true.
you could get a Lambda and a Monstrucker for nearly the same cost.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
And there's still only one wound.
Yeah.
28 points for a one wound guy, turret or no turret, is pretty expensive.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm a one wound truther. I love my expensive one wound models, and it's that or cigarettes. So we'll move on to the Epsilon now. The Goat Salon, if you would. He hasn't really changed much. I mean, probably deservingly. He's still, yeah, I don't know. I love him. I can't say it any
He's
other
still
way.
very good. I think his HMG's dropped a point, which is nice because climbing plus is worse.
Yeah.
He's just solid.
I mean,
There's yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think you're taking an Epsilon or a Nimrod in every list, and I think that's objectively correct.
That's a bit of a hot take, Dante.
Is it?
I don't think every list.
I think
if you
you
go
want
to a
that smoke
tournament,
shooting capability.
I
mean, maybe if you're not taking a tag, like if you're
well that's a bit of a caveat. Sure.
If you okay in every non-tag list, I think you should.
How many non-tag lists are there?
I don't play
No,
I don't play the Zeta. That's that bullshit, dog.
So the Epsilon hits everything that isn't a tag well. You just need to make sure you also have something that hits a tag well. So smoke shooting is great. It's better this edition than it was last edition.
Very
but
much so.
You're not going to kill a tag with 8 orders with an Epsilon, even if you're smoke shooting.
Yeah, that's true. But anything other than a tag, the Epsilon can chew up decently well. And
yeah,
at the end of the day, it's very good at winning gunfights. So even if you don't kill something, it's unlikely you're going to get murdered back in sort of a prolonged shootout. If you're looking for something AP, there is a different option for you. But yeah, that's very true.
It's just O12 staple.
Yeah. Got to eat your meat and potatoes. And speaking of an AP option, we've got the Nimrod. It's got that beautiful 6-2 movement, and the super jump's gotten a lot better. So it moves 6-6, which is pretty incredible. It's got the forward deployment, hidden deployment profile you're never going to use. It's got the AP marksman and is picked up an EM carbine. And has a new profile, Thunderbolt +1 burst and light shotgun. What are your takes on these Nimrod profiles?
Unfortunately, you're not taking the Thunderbolt and you're not taking the AP submachine gun. So you really only have one profile.
Yeah, I think that's about right.
AP marksman's great. The movement is amazing. It's basically an Epsilon that's traded crappy climbing plus for amazing super jump. And the pickup of an EM carbine means that this can kind of deal with tags in a way. If you're smoke shooting at a tag, the tag shooting back at -9 if it's in good range and -12 if it's in bad range. So that's just great.
I mean, I can see
they're linkable.
Yeah, and linkable is a big deal. I can see you shooting a tag once with the EM carbine, bricking it, and then just bursting into it with the AP marksman rifle till it dies.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's pretty hot. Yeah, no, I really, really like the Nimrod. I think, yeah, I mean, if you need an MSV2 shooter, which one do you think you're reaching for first?
the Nimrod for super jump, pretty much.
Yeah, because I think last edition I would have told you the Epsilon, but N5, man, this AP Marksman EM carbine's really hot. Only
Yeah,
.5 swig is pretty relevant as well.
yeah. I think for long range shooting, O12 covered on many accounts with the tag, the Gamma, and the Omega. When it comes to Spitfire range bands, that's where vanilla O12 really has a lack of options. So the Nimrod kind of fills that slot really well, even if it's really the only thing that does fill the slot in the entire army, if I'm honest.
Ooh, I don't know. I might try and sell you. I might try and sell you on a Psycop in a surprise segment later. But
Okay.
you're so. I mean, people can say but with the Epsilon you just stand up and shoot. You're so fast with the Nimrod. You're really not going to have trouble getting into a decent range band either.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
I think is incredible. And now maybe we have a Tristan meta pick. Cuervo Goldstein. Basilisk level Delta.
All right, look. What can I say? Who doesn't like the appeal of a Fizz 13 combat jump guy who's effectively 2 wounds with martial arts 4 and a monofilament CCW? He slaps. He fucking slaps.
He's not a specialist, but
He's a specialist at cutting things in half.
that's true, and I do like how he does have the option of the DACC weapon. Fit with a pass of 4, which is really damn high. Martial arts level 4 is really nice because you're getting that special die at that point as well.
You're getting a natural +1 burst at level 4.
Oh,
So it is a potential of 4 monofilament saves on something, which is amazing. Look, this is a bit of a vanity pick. There aren't going to be always be situations where you can get a close combat guy where he needs to be, and if you can't use his CC abilities, he's a very expensive submachine gun or boarding shotgun.
I mean, I quite like him in anti-material missions. There has been a change to D-charges where using them in CC imposes a -6. But with your martial arts, you're still slapping them on a 20 with 2 dice, assuming there's no sort of fuckery with the whatever you're hitting. I think that's a really good use for him. He is a vanity pick. Most lists can fit 1 or 2 vanity picks, so there's nothing wrong with that. He's got that really quick super jump to help him to get into CC. I guess what I've liked about a lot of the drop troops is that if you miss the jump, they're quick enough to get in and do something. But I'm not sure if Cuervo is in that same category where he's not a specialist.
Yeah, he's not. He isn't. He kind of goes against the grain of not being that toolboxy, typical O12 loadout. He's very specialized. He's not being a specialist and having a gun and having a flash pulse and being medium infantry, but yeah, I mean it's only certain missions. Like you're playing decap, you're playing firefight, those kinds of missions where he really might shine. But you might decide to spend 33 points on something else. He's just neat. He's just fun to play with.
I mean, look, there's not much that Cuervo doesn't walk into that doesn't immediately die. And he's bad luck resistant with that no wound incap. So yeah, look, I think there's definitely a place for him, and it's a pretty cool glow up. All right, we'll move on to Sonia. I'm gonna put this on you, Tristan. How do you say this last name in question?
Sonia Lacroix.
Lacroix? Okay, cool.
Lacroix.
I'll go with Sonia Lacroix. She's picked up the new Albedo. Albedo is changed to be Mimetism, but for marksmanship and multispectral visors, where your opponent is subject to the negative in brackets. So in this case, if a visor was to shoot at Sonia, they'd start at a -6. Do you think things have... I mean, you didn't really tend to take Sonya in vanilla in N4. Do you think much has changed for her in N5?
Nope.
Just straight up nah?
Look, sure, she might be decent at shooting at marksman or MSV pieces, but she's 28 points and she's only 1 wound. Yes, she's linkable. No, I'm not taking her.
Oh, I don't know. I like that she's linkable. I don't know. I think I think someone could do something with her. I'm not saying that something is good, but yeah, look, I don't know. I think there's potential. I think it's worth testing.
Well, let's say that you want to shoot at a TR bot. And you're like, I'll use Sonya because she has albedo, but oh fuck, I'm out of good range. But she has a multi-rifle. Okay,
That's where you're wrong, Tristan. Your instincts have betrayed you. There's a comma next to that multi-rifle.
Oh, emitter, sure.
Boom.
Yeah, if you want to use the emitter, sure.
Facts and logic prevail.
Look, you can if you want. But she's 28 points.
Yeah.
She is expensive.
She is expensive.
If your opponent isn't running, that hard MSV piece that requires albedo, like most MSV pieces, you could shoot at with your better MSV pieces. Like
or just anything that doesn't have a visor through white noise like you usually do.
Yes. Like the just having repeaters everywhere and access to white noise kind of makes Sonya, like, throw her in the bin.
I mean, look, I like that she's linkable because that means she's not totally dead weight like she was in N4. You can cart her around as a specialist with something. The +1 Swick is nice, but I'm having a hard time imagining an O12 list where you've run out of Swick but haven't run out of points.
Yeah.
I think there's potential. But if she was dead weight, I would not be surprised. Maybe we can take out a sports bet multi or something. But
here's my first one. She's the worst lieutenant in O12. There you go.
I'm not gonna. No, I'm taking Cho. At least Sonya's got something strange going on.
Cho's worse than Sonya.
Yep.
Are you smoking something?
Yes, it's cigarettes. We talked about this.
Oh, Dante.
Nah, that's a hill.
Have you sold yourself? You're selling yourself out?
I'm selling myself to YouTube, bro. This is what 50 subscribers does to someone. No, maybe we should leave this hill so I don't die on it and move on to the next unit. But I think, you know what? I'm not even going to say what I think. You've heard me. Next up is the Silver Star Rovers, who are now linkable. But does that make you want to take them?
Look, the only reason I'd see to take them is if you really, really, really want a burst 1+1 missile launcher.
I think there is something for that missile launcher and maybe a heavy machine gun. The heavy machine gun has got taco air. It's still a specialist. That's a pretty nice package. It is expensive. It's not. It's maybe a bit more expensive than you'd like. But then, strapping that missile launcher on there. But then what happens if you go first? I don't know. I think it's complicated.
Yeah, I think it is just too expensive. If you want to take a duo, it's minimum mid-50s points. And I can get better things for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. We don't need to take basic bitch heavy infantry in O12. And they're not even that resilient. Sure, they might all be specialists. They might kind of be the backup. Turn 3, I jump my missile off the roof and then start running and press buttons. But it's just BS13, no mods with armor 3. It's kind of okay.
Yeah, it's nothing fancy. You know what, Tristan? I think I just thought of the best duo in the game. Okay, get this.
If you're about to say Sonya, I'm leaving the call.
Okay, moving to the next profile. We've got the
No, tell me. I want to.
no.
What are you doing?
No, I need this call. I need this call.
If you're about to say Silver Star and Sonya,
You know, my mental board lets me make 2 calls a week. One of them's to you and the other's been to Santa. So
it doesn't give you any bonuses, Dante. There's no keywords.
That doesn't matter. It's about efficiency, Tristan. We'll talk about this later. It's about efficiency. Think of how quick you can
What
get
the
Sonya
fuck are you doing, Dante? What are you doing to me?
Paid for one of the Swick. Dude, it's a .5 Swick missile launcher.
Bro, Sonya's a specialist anyway. Why do you fucking...
Because it's going to die, Tristan. Because it's going to die.
Let's move. Okay. Here's the hot take that you might not expect. 2 Hellblazers in every list. Specifically the 19.1s.
Damn, now I'm going to hang up this call. That's crazy.
No, so... For anyone out there who just heard that, they might be like, what the fuck you on about? Hellblazers got worse. Like, you know, they have limited cover. They're impetuous. What are you doing? Well, good friend, let me introduce you to the fact that O12 can't fucking get into close to anything at all, right? What other close assault do you have in this list aside from you have Varangians and...
We've lost Lian Kai, haven't we?
Yes, you've lost Lian Kai. So your close assault options are Hellblazers, Varangians, and Hippolyta. Hippolyta's expensive. Varangians are decent. Berserk is a face-to-face, which makes them less reliable. And Smoke is less reliable now. Hellblazers have good CC. They're relatively quick. They're 6 armor and cover. They're stealthy, which means they can walk through repeater nets.
And there's a lot less Sixth Sense hackers in the game now, so that's pretty sweet.
Yeah, Sixth Sense hackers are going to be really hard to come by. And it's slapping you with an explosive CC weapon. And again, it's if you're going second, it's one of those units that you throw forward. Potentially you might put one in suppressive or not, but it's just going to be really annoying to deal with because it's 6 armor and 2 wounds. So anything running up the table, you're going to have to you try and force your opponent to deal with it.
Yeah, and look,
I think they're invaluable.
I think, you know, BS12 isn't bad either. Sure, you've got...
For 19 points.
Yeah. And, you know, but realistically with these guys, you're running around a corner with them, stripping both you and your opponent of cover. You've probably got a burst advantage. Yeah, no, I like it. I like it a decent bit. You know, my gut is just screaming no. But I'm hearing you, and I want you to know you've been heard. And I think you might be onto something.
I was initially resistant as well, because I went, well, what if I just take Varangians instead?
Yeah, I mean, I think
Varangians,
the Berserk
Varangians are okay.
The Varangians next to the Tigers might be the model the Berserk changes hurt the most. So I can definitely see where the Hellblazers, they're going to be much more reliable in close combat than a Varangian, who's sort of like barely okay enough to take a non-CC model.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I do like him. I'm not going to say no. I think you're onto something. We'll just have to see how it works on the table.
Yeah. The big difference between these guys and Varangians is Varangians have no cover. So they're only going to be 2 armor, and Hellblazers are 2 full wounds, so they're not affected by shock, and have 6 armor. And that's a fairly substantial difference.
Yeah, that's not nothing. I think them not having a template hurts them a bit defensively. But I think if they're that far up the table, they've probably done something worthwhile. Or I guess you would have hoped they've done something worthwhile anyway. So yeah, no, yeah. I'm in. I'm in for the Hellblazers. Next up, we've got the Raptor. I know you were pretty fond of these guys, and I was too. Do you think much has changed for them?
I mean, the Spitfire is an option now that it's actually cheaper than the Killer Hacker. It is going to be, unless you're taking the Poopy Wrecker profile, it is pretty much the only Spitfire you're going to get. if you still take it over the killer hacker is the killer hacker has an emitter, which means it's still reaching out past the multi-rifle range bands. Yeah, look, I'm taking it. If I'm taking a hacking list and I want something to run up the board, I'm probably taking it. It's just it's just one of those really solid profiles.
I've got a take. I don't even know
Go
if I'd
for it.
really call it hot. I think Raptor stocks are up. If you've been day trading on the Raptor, it's time to cash out. I think they've gotten like noticeably better and have noticeably more value with how little templates there are in the game, and that killer hacking having that emitter, and the Ford Observer having that EM carbine. I think is really nice. I think I like the Raptor more than I liked them in N4, and I liked them quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, heavy flamethrowers are few and far between now,
Mm.
which is really good. And it's still the same thing of just I'm either face to facing you or you're taking a flamethrower. Um,
Yeah.
so it's up to you to make the bad decision. And it is BS14.
Yeah, I mean
So
it's a killer. It's an absolute killer.
it's great. It is a dedicated choice. If you're leaning into that hacking list, this is a dedicated choice.
Mm.
Because it is so expensive.
Well, and
Um,
they've all got boarding pistols as well.
they do.
I mean,
Yeah. So
if you look at the
there is
Raptor
always
killer
templates.
hacker, like there's not much that it can't engage.
Yeah, it can engage all the way up to 48 at zeros.
Yeah, and it can still cyber mask with the Diva bot to get up close. I don't know. I'm really high on the Raptor. Uh, it is a dedicated choice, like you were saying, and they can be hard to fit in lists. But you get a vanity pick per list, and I think this is a little bit better than a vanity pick.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think this is a vanity
No,
pick. I think
yeah,
this is just, I've decided to dedicate 40
yeah,
points to, like, I'm dedicating to my hacking game. If I'm going to take a killer hacker, it's going to be this one.
yeah, yeah. No, I think he's absolutely sick. Love the guy. Next up, we got the Omega, who's had like a 5 points drop.
Yep.
What the hell?
If you want an orc with mimetism -6, this is your guy.
Yeah, I mean, saying that some people might go, but orcs bad. No, they're not bad. They're completely fine. But when you staple Mim 6 to it and make it whip 14, that's a lot, and that changes quite a lot. I mean, the Omega was one of my favorite white noise shooters, just because of how reliable that BS14 armor and 2 wounds was. And him dropping in points, Yahtzee.
Yeah, look, there's really not much to say about this guy. He's
Mm.
good. Mimetism -6 will always be good. A heavy machine gun will always be good. And 42 points is really not that much of an investment for a MIM6 HMG that's BS14 and 2
Yeah,
wounds. And
it's incredibly reasonable. I think this guy's stonks have gone up incredibly as well by being linkable. A theme I'm sort of seeing with the O12 fire teams is that you've got a lot of models you'd kind of just be taking anyway, and now you can just staple them together or staple something else to them. So,
yeah, I feel like people are focusing too much on trying to get that special dice. Um,
mm,
like you don't need it. It can just be utility. Like the Omega, you can staple a Varangian to it, and you've just given the Omega smoke. Like it doesn't have to be more complicated than that.
no, it really doesn't. Yeah, it really doesn't. Uh, yeah, I mean, I don't really have much more to say on this guy. I think we'll move on now to the Gamma, who was sort of a red-haired child in N4 for me, where every time I would look at the Gamma, I just sort of go, but Omega cheaper. But
Me too.
yeah, but I think the Gamma was one of the few hard arrows next to the tag that you could put up in O12 and N4. But I think he's had a really big change to him that I really like, which is Warhorse. So he's picked up that veteran skill. he's not going to be bullied by BS attack -3, and now can't be isolated, which I think's really strong.
He is, so potentially the top 3 lieutenant options in O12 is going to be the tag, this, and the alpha or whatever. But I think this guy is probably the second best lieutenant in the faction, just purely because it's 3 wounds at 6 armor and it can't be isolated. So you're
Yeah.
having to deal with it. You're either having to kill it in close combat or shoot it, and yeah, it virtually means you're not going to be in loss of lieutenant at all if you take this guy. And he's just a great gun, and with the chain of command, you can use him freely. You can use the lieutenant order freely and just do whatever you want with him.
Yeah, I mean, I could even see you taking the Gamma Lieutenant Feuerbach, the men, and just blatantly putting up the Gamma on ARO. I mean, I think, yeah, BS-14, 3 wounds. This guy's not going to go down in a single order, and you can just take a sit whenever you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think big stocks up on the Gamma. BTS-6
And he's
is
only,
huge.
Yeah, he is like the budget version of your tag. So if you want to save 20 points, not taking the tag and taking this guy, that's perfectly reasonable.
I mean, I think, the Gamma as well, having that Warhorse and BTS-6 and not being able to be possessed, the only thing people can really do against him is carbonite him, which if you've got an engineer around, or he can, potentially reset out of relatively easily with an okay whip. I think he's pretty resilient to the usual heavy infantry and tag problems.
Yes, absolutely.
Also, duoable, and if you're a true mad lad, you can put him in a Harris for burst 2 on that Feuerbach and ARO.
I've been seeing some people go, take a Gamma and 2 Vidocs, and I'm like, yeah, do you really want to though?
Yeah, I mean, I think, whoever on the CB team is taking 3 Omegas, probably needs to lose their job.
This is your first opportunity in O12 to throw 6 dice, if that's your thing.
Yeah.
But
I can see a pretty nice Harris of Gamma, Vidoc Doctor, and maybe just that Ment kind of stapled onto the back to cheat yourself another kind of quality utility duo. Where the Vidoc Doctor,
I wouldn't do that, just because you're probably having your LT and your chain of command in the same Harris.
Yeah, I mean, what I'd be doing is I'd probably be leaving it 8 inches behind and then just leaving it behind as the link goes forward. But that's very true. If they get like a good CC model up in there, you might be in trouble. That's very true.
Well, if you're just wanting to take the Gamma and the Vidoc, you can do that in the duo section as well.
That's true, but I'm anticipating pretty high duo usage and actually a bit of pressure on which duos you take. I'm looking at this list. I'm seeing a lot of models I want to take anyway, and would like to staple together. So I'm more looking at the Harris as like what can I strap a Ment to get an extra duo. That's sort of how I look. That's sort of how I'm looking at the Harrises off of instinct, just because getting that burst bonus is a bit more difficult.
Yeah.
But nah, Gamma good. Uncontroversial opinion time. All right, on to another uncontroversial opinion. Zeta good.
Zeta is very good. So good that they nerfed it.
Yeah, they did. It's had 2 pretty significant nerfs. The first is it lost tack aware, which is a little sad. And the second one is, climbing plus got worse. If you put your tinfoil hat on, you could say maybe that was more targeted towards the tags. And they've also got the new ancillary pilot thingies. Do you want to explain that, Tristan?
Yeah, sure. So, your standard tags now come with a little buoy they can pop out, almost like a deployable. And then when you activate, you have a little peripheral guy that moves with you and can press buttons for you, which is just so much more efficient than popping out your pilot, having to use the pilot, press a button, and then popping back in the tag. Now
Mm.
you can activate them both at once, almost like a little raptor. And yeah, being able to press buttons and shoot things is great.
It's worth noting the old Zeta pilot only had whip 11 as well, so going up to a
Yeah.
whip 12 is pretty nice. You're also exposing yourself to less risk than a traditional pilot. Um, you my favorite thing I ever did was shooting a Guija pilot with a hidden deployed Trinitarian sniper. Wasn't really a problem with the remote pres tags anyway, but yeah, saves you from a bit of risk that probably won't be there anyway. But look, yeah, it's still good. You've got NCO and a lieutenant profile, so you're still getting, even though you don't have TAC war, you still are getting kind of extra orders in other places. And you think the Zeta lieutenant is still the best in faction?
Yeah, I don't think you're ever taking the NCO profile. Uh,
Mm.
3 points for the same amount of orders when you have a 14-point chain of command is probably just a waste of point.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I think the Zeta Lieutenant in the previous edition was 78 or 77 points.
Mm.
Um, so it has gone down significantly. 70 points for a BS14 HRMC with its own template defense is incredible. And sure, Climbing Plus is worse, but it can still get up to those really awkward spots and just start overwatching the entire table.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think the Zeta is still pretty goated. Nothing much more to say there. Then we've got the Wrecker, who I don't think changed at all, really.
Exactly the same.
Yeah. um, you've got the Zbot ancillary remote change, but I think that's literally it. I think it's like same point, same profile, same everything.
Yep. The meta is going to kind of move around this.
Mm.
The average BS in the game has gone down, which means the Wrecker's kind of average BS13 is probably more reliable than it used to.
Mm.
Um, this is O12's king of AP. If you're shooting at something that doesn't have mimetism, then this will reliably kill it. Like it kills a Yotum a quarter of the time in one order,
Yeah,
which is
yeah,
insane.
and let's make this clear. We're really only looking at the heavy rocket launcher profile. If you want a heavy machine gun or a Spitfire, you're probably looking elsewhere. But the heavy rocket launcher is really the special sauce. And yeah, the water level
Yeah.
has gone down. Your BS13 is better. But we also saw with the Stigmatron that a BS13 heavy rocket launcher kind of is just enough, especially with the wounds and the resilience.
Yeah, and now BTS 9's actually really really decent because you're having armor saves against guided. So this thing isn't getting guided really.
No.
Um, and no one wants to risk fighting this.
Mm.
And it's cheap. That's the good thing as well. It's less than like it costs the same as the Gamma.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so if you're taking one of the other LTs, this does relatively the same job as the Gamma, with
Mm.
putting down way more damage.
Yeah, I mean it might be my favored white noise shooter just because of how devastating it is when it hits. I mean
Yeah.
I've put it up on ARO before, and had units with vastly superior gunfighting abilities refuse to engage it just because they're so afraid of what happens if it hits. You know, a lot of the times you're taking these multi-wound heavy infantry units and you're feeling very safe about taking a gunfight with most things because you can afford that fuck up. But that's not the case with the Wrecker at all. You fuck up against the
Yeah.
Wrecker, you're probably a puddle.
Yep.
All right. Well, let's look at the Roadbot. Or should I say the Goatbot?
Slightly less Goatbot now.
Yeah, slightly less Goatbot. You are decently affected by the climbing plus change, where before you could just sort of zoom over buildings, and you have lost a little bit of speed on that back end of your movement and in your combat form. But he's now doable and has pretty good duo options. I
No, but
think,
he has one good duo option that you're probably taking all the time.
yeah, yeah. That I mean, but even let's say taking an Omega or a Gamma, and you want to spend a couple orders shooting at something before moving with other stuff, you can just sort of slingshot your roadbot forward with maybe 1 or 2 orders, and just squeeze a little bit of efficiency out of that. Um, I used to run a duo in military orders of 2 Knights of Montesa paramedics who could link. They could start the game within 8 inches of each other, and then use an order just to drive 8 inches to the opposite ends of the table, and just
Yep.
squeeze a little bit of efficiency. I can see you doing that with the roadbots, but I could also understand if there's enough pressure on your duo slots that that's not really a possibility. But yeah, I think there's definitely one very standout duo option, which we'll get to in a second. Um, but yeah, otherwise, I think you really want to focus down on those utility and efficiency duos. Uh, I tended to take the paramedic options without the sidebot, or the
Yeah.
marksman rifle light shotgun +1 burst. The light shotgun, it's gotten a bit worse in that you don't have those templates, but an extra burst is nice. Um, you're able to put marksmanship, and on that combat form, I think marksmanship remotes are going to be pretty popular, just because the BS has generally gone down, and it's hard to get those really exemplary shots without some kind of marksmanship or another bonus like that.
Yeah, I mean, people are going to be like sad that it got worse, but it is still very, very good. It's still 2 effective wounds. It's still really fast. It's still, you know, a lot of the time you can make it effectively BS15 with mimetism.
Yeah, I mean
And
that's yeah.
it's reaching out to 24 inches on some profiles, and then other profiles it's hitting you with a Panzerfaust. Um, and it's a specialist, a fast specialist as well. So it's still only S3 and S5. Like S3 is tiny. It's the size of a flash pulse.
Mm.
Like it's yeah, it's still very, very good.
Yeah, no, I still really like the Roadbot. Uh, I can't imagine anyone looking at the new Roadbot and spilling their milk. But yeah, I think Roadbot's still good. Has some pretty cracked duos. And the most cracked of the duos, maybe for any model, I think what you can do is you can look at the O12 duo list and go look at any model and go, this would go great with an Oko. Because all the
Yeah.
sensor bots, they've all picked up a profile with tactical awareness, sort of mirroring the season 14 bonus. Other than that, triangulated fire has had a bit of a rework where you don't get that -3. I don't think you were going to triangulate the fire with the Oko anyway, but it's a specialist, it's a repeater, it's got tac aware, and you can strap it to any of the models on the fire team list. What the hell?
Um, I think you're pumping it up a little bit more than you need to.
I think you're a liar and a
Um,
fraud.
it is an 8 lock. It is an 18-point sensor bot. Sensor bots are great. Um, I don't necessarily feel like you have to force that duo just to give one thing an extra order for slingshotting or
Yeah,
even
that's true.
dragging it with it, because the tactical awareness is not a full order.
Mm.
I don't mean to crush your spirit stuff.
I assure you, you haven't, because every word you've said has just slid right off my brain. Uh, I'm still going to stand by that the Oko duos are pretty fantastic. I mean, if you strap one to, say, an Omega, you can very easily use that Omega to escort that specialist up the field and then retreat. I think it just gives you a lot of flexibility with what you can do with each individual model. Because the downside of playing vanilla has historically been, okay, I activate my gun piece, move my gun piece, shoot my gun piece. Okay, that's into that. Activate my separate specialist, do that. But if you can strap these really good gunfighters to these pretty serviceable specialists, that are going to increase some efficiency with that tack aware, I think that's incredibly valuable, where you were probably taking some of these gun pieces anyway.
It does depend on your list. Like if you're taking a Nimrod, the Nimrod probably wants the Varangian more than it wants the Copperbot.
Yeah, that's true.
And I will admit the Copperbot is basically a mobile white noise area,
Yeah, yeah.
um, which is really good. But I feel like you don't take it for the merits of its utility, not for the tack aware.
Yeah, no, I think you're definitely right. But the tack aware, it's not just the cherry on top, it's the little umbrella too.
Yeah, the one that you throw off right before you start drinking it.
You know what? I think that just revealed a lot about your soul, Tristan, and I'm very disappointed to hear that. Yeah, I mean, look, I could sit here and regale you, um, of hyperboles about every O12 ring with every model on this list. But you could do that in your own time. I think they're fantastic. Tristan thinks I belong in this
They're
category.
okay.
Well,
Listen, the Oko duo is better in Starmada.
I don't care about Starmada.
Okay, well.
Take your sensitive ass back to Starmada. We're clowning in O12. All right, we'll move on to the peeler. Like I said before, you've got the new Thunderbolt +1 burst profile. It doesn't cost a swick, and it's actually a lot cheaper. I'm pretty high on these Thunderbolts TR bots, especially with that 0 range band further out. But I mean,
Yeah, that's the real kicker.
Do you think they're going to make the cut in an O12
Yes.
list? Yeah.
It's going to take a while. But anything like 5 points is significant. If we start saving, 3 points on the Oko, 5 points on the TR bot, that kind of thing, you'll like 3 points on the Zeta, you'll basically get a whole free Copperbot Thunderbolt at the end of it. And as you said, the real kicker for me is that 0 range band past 32. So you can really put it in a spot where it has burst and it has equal footing with things on higher BS than you.
Yeah, yeah. I think if you're taking a list that is already bringing an Evo hacker, I think these guys are a pretty natural include. And you're probably fine with taking an engineer to get it back up, especially because they've got the sort of turrets with them. Maybe you're taking some other remote units. But yeah, I think the Thunderbolt especially is going to slide in, and I think it's going to dethrone the HMG pretty hard in vanilla O12, just because it's less swick pressure. You've got those longer bands. I really like it, actually.
Yeah.
Guided bot, it's the same. Guided has changed a bit. It's still good. Did you play many guided lists in O12?
I did. Unfortunately, O12 was one of the only factions that got 2 guided bots, and they seem to have fixed this little oversight. Yeah, I mean, O12 is still one of the factions that is going to do guided relatively well.
Yeah.
So it is still a viable strategy for O12, especially since you lack that close assault element, unless you're taking Hippolyta. So you need a way to punish null deployments, and guided might be that. It's also, if you're just taking hacking in general, it's a cheap threat to staple on. Sometimes you're not spending all yours. It is a swick tax, and if you're taking guided, you're taking one less active gun, but
Yeah.
it works. It's still fine.
I mean, I think we've seen a few ways to sidestep some of the swick cost on guns. You know, that Nimrod's only costing you half a swick as opposed to an Epsilon. You can take some of those Thunderbolts instead of heavy machine guns. Or Sonya. But yeah, there is ways. There is ways to get around the swick. I also played a fair bit of guided in O12 as well. You've got a really good active turn guided and a really good passive guided if you're taking serious teams. And yeah, I agree. It might be more relevant now that your close assault's gotten worse. Millicent Copperbots forever. Yudbot, no one cares. Kita, no one cares.
Oh no, we got
care?
okay.
We got
We kind of
-1
care.
AVA, but who cares?
Yes. Well, it's significant. It's one less model under 10 points that we can take. So it kind of is pushing you towards more variants and more cappers and stuff. I mean, it's not that big a deal, but yes.
I mean,
I don't know why.
You did feel the squeeze sometimes with N4 Vanilla O12, but I think with the general mix of point reductions, I think you're not going to feel it as bad as you might think.
Yep. The other thing is it's one less repeater in your DC.
Yeah, that's true.
Unless you're taking Occos and all that crap. But yeah, it's fine. Whatever.
Fuzzbots. I think these guys have gone up. In usage, just the way the baggage rules have changed, as we discussed earlier. We've also talked a bit about the Evo hacker, being a way to build the list, and having baggage with that as well is pretty valuable. Anything else exciting to say about the Fuzzbot?
I mean, Evo hackers are good. You're never taking the combi rifle TR now that the Thunderbolt exists. Yeah, I mean, they're fine. If you're taking an Evo, make sure that you take it and have kind of 2 uses for it. Whether that be definitely 2 units to marksmanship or a drop troop or something like that.
Yeah. Moonrakers.
AVA 2, max AVA in the list, first thing.
Yeah, no, never leave home without them. They got a little worse with the shotgun change. They've had an eeny weeny points decrease to reflect that. Still absolutely goated. Yeah, like Tristan said, take them in every list.
Yep.
Adhesive launcher rifle got a little bit better. Did they used to have acrylite cannon on some profiles, or am I cooking?
They did. So they've just replaced.
Yeah, I mean that's probably fine. It was more up to personal taste which one you took. Adhesive launcher rifles now have an additional burst compared to the old adhesive launcher, so that's good. All right, Stormbots. Literally haven't changed either. I think maybe a little points decrease.
No, exactly the same.
Yeah, exactly the same. Yeah, I took these guys in the last event I played O12 in, performed incredibly well. They're your cheapest multi-wound gunfighter, and they do really well. They're kind of like a wrecker light is how I describe them. Having a repeater is nice to put down the white noise kind of from itself, so you never need to worry about having a repeater around. They're really solid. You're able to bring that ballistics up with an Evo hacker. Yeah, I love them. What can I say?
Yep, just don't fall into the trap of giving it marksmanship and then throwing white noise in front of it because it can't see.
Yeah. Yeah, that's.
But yeah, it is incredibly efficient gun. 31 points for a burst 3 HRL that's +1 damage, is BS 13. Carries its own white noise zone. It's very good.
Yeah. All right, on to the Razor. We've had some people losing their mind, and by some people I mean you, on loss of Lieutenant.
I wouldn't say losing my mind.
I think having any reaction to this other than a slow blink is losing your mind. But would you like to present to the beautiful audience the new hotness?
Well, the Razor has picked up a lovely little profile that is Mine Layer Monofilament Mine for half a SWIC and 31 points, which doesn't really serve any practical use whatsoever, but it's fucking cool. But the real win here is the hacking device getting Trinity.
Yeah.
Having a dual purpose hacker is always great, and it's just efficient.
Yeah, I think I've heard a lot about the Razor monofilament mine layer. Yeah, I think the real thing to pay attention to is this hacking device with Trinity. you've got that surprise attack, either hacking or Trinity, which I think there's a lot of value there having those squished into the one profile and sort of picking what you're doing when you come out of that marker state. Silenced
You,
pistols are also pretty decent.
they're interesting. I'm not super hot on them, to be honest, because most of the time it means you might be spending an extra order to go round them anyway.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think the really great thing about the Razor is uh, luring your opponent into a false sense of security that your hacking isn't as robust as it actually is.
Mm, mm. I think as well the combi rifle is probably the best weapon out of the profiles as
Yes.
well, because your BS12 with Mim 6, which is actually fairly decent for a Mimetism gunfighter. So if he's popping up in the midfield, he can do his hacking things, take some decent gunfights, press a button, maybe re-camo. I think the Razor has a lot more play than he did last edition, where he was another profile in the wall.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, gangbusters.
Oh, how sad.
Yep, it's a sad day for the gangbuster. They went up a point. Is that right?
No, no, no. So the killer hacker and the mine layer are exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
The random boarding shotgun went down and got a chain cult.
Yippee.
Um, I don't think. Look, you might take the mine layer combi rifle. Unfortunately, I
I
don't
wouldn't.
think. I think they've fallen out of favor.
Yeah, I mean, it does make it pretty rough with the Moonrakers being around. I quite like them in a list where you're taking serious teams, just because, your mind layer specialists also happen to be killer hackers. It's harder to walk into that repeater net with gangbusters around. But unless you've got that kind of repeater before the gangbuster, it's sort of like shooting fish in a barrel if you don't go first and they have killer hackers. Uh, I played a pretty funny list, which was 2 gangbusters, 2 moonrakers, and 2 serious recently. It was funny, but I don't know how well that's going to be something that translates. But I mean, yeah, the issue really is you're taking 2 moonrakers and then sort of going from there in your defensive mix, and the gangbuster's just lower on that list than he used to be.
Well, the whole issue is that everything the Sirius and the Moonrakers have forward deploy 8, and these guys have infiltration. So what,
Yeah.
are you putting the gangbusters ahead of them? Which is
No,
kind of
no,
counterintuitive.
you're definitely not. You're putting the gangbusters behind them, and then maybe even further behind their mine. Like, you're taking a gangbuster and you're putting him somewhere between 4 and 7 inches up, probably.
Yeah,
And
which
yeah,
is
you're just
kind
not
of
getting that
wasteful.
value. I mean, if you're
Yeah.
going first, you can do that full send, and then you can coordinate a cyber mask at the end of that turn or something like that. But yeah, they're an awkward piece to use and get used to. Maybe the points around it coming down is going to be in their favor. But yeah, I don't know. I still like them, but that's because they're my little guys.
Yeah, they're alright. I feel like they're paying too much for what they are. Like, I think MSV1 should be costed less than camo, and you can get like an equivalent killer hacker with camo in pretty much any other faction for less.
I mean, look, these guys, they're pretty similar to Guilang, and we've seen how Guilang have struggled with similar kit, just being a bit more expensive than people would like. So yeah, I think the multispectral visor adds quite a lot to the cost, and isn't really utilized an incredible amount.
Yeah.
All right, we might move on to the Nightshades, um, which it's just a flashbang of a profile with so many words on it that sums up to not. I don't know. They're fine. Super jump's
Yeah.
nice,
Yeah, I mean, if you're taking the killer hacker, just take the razor. If you're
yeah,
taking the mine layer, just take the razor.
which is
If you're
something I
not
never
taking
thought
the
I'd hear.
if you're not taking those, it's the only use I can see is you run into a tag and para it, and then when it's parried, you EM it. Or you place D charges on it. or you fork people with drop bears and an SMG. um,
Yeah.
it's a little bit faster. If you really want a hidden deploy mobile specialist, maybe. But apart from that, it's kind of expensive. It doesn't get the full infiltration. Bang bomb is a disgusting keyword that needs to be removed from the game.
Yeah, I mean, there's
Yeah.
anything it wants to do, something else can do better. Uh, I think it's fine with D charges as like your backup plan for blowing something up mission related, but that's maybe it. I think it's still just too like, yeah, I don't know. It has a lot of words and does a lot, but it costs too much and other things can do it better.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. Sorry, Nightshade. Enjoy another edition doing nothing. Hippolyta. Bit of a buff, bit of a nerf, depends who you talk to.
I'd say buff overall.
Uh, yeah, I'd be comfortable.
Uh,
I'd be comfortable with that.
you sound unsure.
I did like the Eclipse. Just for when she would do solo runs, it would make it easier. But yeah, I think it's fine. Whatever. I if someone said buff like you have, I'd say yeah, okay. If someone said nerf, I'd say yeah, I guess. I don't know, pretty equivalent. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, so she face to faces with her berserk now, which is strictly a buff for her
yeah,
unless she's trying to berserk Shinobu.
yeah. I
Um,
mean, CC 24 martial arts level 3. You're swinging 2 dice at +7. There's you're gonna come out on top most of the time.
yeah. Well, not +7 anymore, Dante, Mr. N4. Uh, you're critting on 1 to 7s. She has super jump, which nearly doubles her speed from what it was before.
Mm.
Limited cover and impetuous is almost a boon for her.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, she's getting that. She actually is retaining that 6 armor in cover, which is really really good.
Mm.
Um,
And she can
she
shoot
still keeps
quite
stealth.
well with Mim
She can shoot
6
very
and
well.
BS 13.
Yeah, she shoots very well. She still has a BS 14 flash pulse, which is sometimes applicable. The smoke grenades in O12 are good for her. Um,
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
like
I think
smoke is good for O12.
yeah, that's true. Um, do you think you take Hippolyta and one like as a Varangian, like as a heavy Varangian replacement sometimes?
Um, I don't think you try and replace a Varangian with a hippie. I
Mm.
think you have to actively take her. I don't think she really fits Unfortunately, she doesn't really fit the role of a Varangian.
Yeah, that's
Varangians are
true.
meant to be expendable.
Mm.
Um, hippie I wouldn't treat as expendable.
No.
She is your expensive Liang Kai.
Mm.
You want to be careful with her, but
Mm.
she is an answer to a question that O12 might have struggled with if we didn't keep Hippie or because we lost Liang Kai. So
Yeah. Mm.
she's an answer to null deploy. She is an answer to some really hard to move pieces
Mm.
with just berserk. You can berserk something as oppressive fire and still win and not die.
Mm. Mm.
She has a lot of good uses. Even herself in suppressive fire, uh,
Yeah, it's
with
not
6
bad.
armor, it's really interesting. I would be thinking you're seeing her most of the time if you can fit her.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, 40 points is still a price point where I don't think she's an auto include or anything. Um, it will be. I think having that smoke over Eclipse smoke does add some extra utility and synergy with the rest of a list. I think it'll be interesting to see how often she pops up. But yeah, no, after you've gone through everything, I think it is definitely a buff, and I think Hippie's winning.
Hippie is winning. Hippie's moving really, 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 really quick.
Yeah. And speaking of losing, Varangian Guard.
Don't be too hard on them.
Yeah, no, I won't. They're fine. They're still good. You should still probably take 2 in every list.
Yeah, I mean, on average, the Berserk is fine. you're not trade. You can't trade into those high value targets anymore,
Mm.
but you're still reliably beating, regular line infantry and that kind of thing, non-CC specialists.
Yeah, of course.
And I think the real important thing is their their burst 3 gun and their burst 2 chain cult.
Yeah.
So having 2 templates and a burst 3 gun is really good.
Mm. Yeah. I mean, the upgrading the 12-point ranking from to one of the 13-point options, probably the best point you can spend in O12. Some people tend to favor the trench hammer, others prefer the chain cult. No one's getting the boarding shotgun. Where do you sit
No.
in terms of trench hammer or chain cult +1 burst?
Previous edition, I would always pick the trench hammer because you want those 2 saves from the berserk.
Mm.
Berserk is kind of the Rangian game plan. Nowadays, I feel like Berserk isn't the automatic thought when you pick them up.
Mm.
They're more elite smoke throwers with an option of Berserk. So I would probably take the chain cult just because it's an easier fork to shoot or drop templates than it is to dodge out of a smoke and berserk something.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's pretty reasonable. I think with the general reduction of templates as well, it makes templates more valuable to bring to the table. With Dogged as well, you don't really care if you take a shot in response. Yeah, I think the chain cult, pretty groovy.
Yeah, I mean both. I think both are fine.
Oh, definitely.
The
Yeah.
the chain cult is active turn. The chain rifle is more reactive turn because it's bigger and you burst one anyway. So it's pick your poison really.
Yeah. Also doable with a much longer list of fun stuff.
Oh yes.
So that's
Take
nice.
them, take 'em in duos, and just double berserk things if you want.
Yeah, no, that's pretty funny. Next, we've got a new model, the Firebat Attack Wing. This isn't something we had previously. It's got the new aerial rule, which means it can't be in base contact with anything. So that means can't control objectives, but also can't be close combated. You've got BS attack, SR -1. You jump 8 inches with super jump, which means you can move 8 and then another 8, which is incredibly fast. You've got no cover, but you do have Mim -6 and a second wound. What are your thoughts on the Firebat?
I'm sorry. What? What is this unit?
It's the
Looked.
Batcopter.
I'm just looking at a pile of shit.
Yeah, I agree. Like it's quick.
Guys, we spent 42 points and half a swick on a +1 burst SMG, a burst 2 Thunderbolt, and a burst 2 light rocket launcher. Fuck, I'm winning.
Yeah, I mean, even if you take the Thunderbolt +1 burst profile, you still have to get within 8 for that good submachine gun. It's not even a good submachine gun. It's just a...
No.
Yeah, it could have been an AP
No.
or something else.
This is one of the
Yeah.
shittest vehicles in the game.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess... I mean, just take Hippolyta, right? I mean, that's sort
For
of how I'm
36
looking at
points.
this. Like, just take Hippolyta.
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
there
if
is
you want a
no
quick,
practical
close
reason.
assault, yeah.
Yeah. It's not even a close assault. Like, a +1 burst SMG is not close assault.
I don't know, a certain podcast has been pretty high on SMG gunfighters in the past. But yeah, no, it's not close assault at all. Yeah.
Yeah, just cut the vehicles off. If you guys take this, all power to you. But it can't get cover, so really it's only Mim 3 most of the time, and it's only armor 3. It has 2 wounds, but it's as big as a tag. So if you go second, you're gonna have a bitch to hide this thing, and it's gonna die in one order because it's I ARO you with a BS-12 Thunderbolt, and I shoot back at you with 5 dice on like 10s or something. Oh look, it's
Yeah.
dead! Yay!
You've got dodge -3, which probably just prolongs the inevitable of the
Yeah,
BS-12
yeah,
as
like.
well. You're not even dodging well.
Oh no, I'm at -6, but all my shots are free. I'll just do this a couple times. Oh look, you're dead.
Yeah, not impressive at all. All
Nope.
right. Well, that rounds out the army list, but I'm introducing a brand new segment to this video: Infinity Shark
Oh,
Tank.
oh no.
Tristan, I have prepared some duos to pitch to you that I would like your stake in. And the first one I'm going to pitch to you is two Psychops. Our first Psychop being the indubitable Psychop Killer Hacker, with the Disco Baller. As discussed earlier, uber reliable. The Killer Hacker's great. And the Psychop MSV1 multi-marksman rifle with the armed turret. We've got a lot of merits in this team. The Disco Baller is a pretty unique piece of kit, and the Killer Hacker is pretty fantastic with BTS 6. Additionally, you did say there's a bit of a lack of Spitfire range bands. A burst 3.5 multi-marksman rifle, is going to fill that role and do some damage with the multi-ammo type. And who doesn't love leaving behind an armed turret? I'm asking for your house.
Yeah, this isn't really that much of hard of a sell. Um, the Psychop MSV, like the 30-point Psychop profile is just good. Stapling a Disco Baller to it and giving it the special dice is also just good. Yeah, not really
Fantastic.
any complaints. The only complaint I would have is maybe 53 points for 2 wounds is a little expensive, but it's it's solid. There's not really any complaints there.
All right, very nice. So I've taken your house. That's good. The next duo I have to pitch to you is anything with a HMG range band and the Oko.
You're out of your mind.
Omega, Gamma. You know what? Fuck it. I'll even take Silver Star.
You're out of your mind.
Tell me more. I've got this Gamma. He's gonna escort this little Oko up the board. We're gonna press a button, and we're gonna come home.
It's
It carries a repeater too. Can put down shit
fine.
through. Can put down
Look,
the white noise.
look. The repeater is fine. It's not as necessary with HMG range bands. You're going to be shooting from near your DZ most of the time, and you're going to have repeaters in your DZ. If you're taking an Oko anyway, I guess sure, but it is using a duo slot, whereby you might want 2 Varangians in a duo for that reliable smoke. Or you might want that Psychop duo, or you might want the Roadbot attached to the Oko instead of a HMG. I don't think it's necessary. You can do it, there's nothing wrong with it. But you might be better served using your duo slots elsewhere.
And for that reason, you're out.
Yeah, you're not selling me on this one. Look, it's fine. It's not as good as the previous one.
All right. Okay.
It's just.
Next up, I've got a Haris team for you.
Are you just making these up on the spot?
No, I actually have these prepared. We talked about it briefly before, but a Vidok multi-sniper, a Vidok doctor, and a Ment agent to cheat it into the Harris slot. As an ARO.
As an ARO, in general, no.
Well,
in general, no.
It's one of the few hard AROs you can put up in O12. It can see through smoke. 2 dice on 13s with MIM -3. Ignoring a bit of MIM. Pretty hot, and you got the doctor right behind it.
It's a hard no from me. So, the Vidok, no ARO piece in the game is going to be hard enough to take active turn pretty much. That Vidok is going to die. It's only 1 armor. There's a likely chance it dies in 1 order. If it goes completely down, the Vidok Doctor is pretty much useless. And it's 19 points in a slot. Yeah. This Harris is made out of hopes and dreams. Hopes and dreams don't win Infinity games.
And maybe the world could use more hopes and dreams. Have you thought of that?
Listen, by all means, you can run it yourselves and test it. But yeah.
I mean, as your duos and teams sort of evaporate over the course of the game, the Vidocq Doc could very easily duo with something else a bit later in the game. Can I push that envelope?
It's a stretch. You're gonna have to move to then make it into a duo. Well, even then, it's like
Okay.
What are you doing? Like a Varangian dies, and you go, "Oh, I'll staple the Varangian to the Vidocq. Oh, that's nice." Nah, it's a hard. Yeah, it's a hard. I'm not buying it.
Okay, he's out. That's fine. Well, I have one last duo for you, and I'm very disappointed that you thought I made these up on the spot. I spent 16 hours in my straitjacket coming up with these over the past week. I think you're really gonna love this last one.
Okay.
A lawkeeper. What's the worst one here? A lawkeeper.
Yeah. Okay. Shut up,
Sonya
Dante.
Lieutenant, and Sonya Lieutenant. And Sonya Lieutenant.
Yeah. Fuck off.
No. But you're
So
you can move fast.
Dante. Let's talk about the
you got
previous. No.
Limited cover in bracket selling point.
If you're taking Sonya in your vanilla O12 list, you're doing something wrong.
Oh, you're such a baby, Tristan. Okay, maybe I did make that last one up on the spot. No straitjacket required. Well, Tristan, thank you for being my first Shark Tank guest. I think overall I've taken your house, and you were out on a couple, so I'm calling that a win for me.
Listen, I think I was reasonable.
Yeah, no, I'm not gonna say you weren't. But hey, look, it beats the mental ward. Well, Tristan, thank you very much for coming on. It's been great having you. Is there anything you'd like to tell us about with Loss of Lieutenant or any other projects you're working on?
If you guys will have till the 5th of December if you'd like to participate in the Pimp My List CanCon edition. The missions are supplies acquisition, unmasking, firefight, and decap. If you want to make a couple lists for that and send it to lossoflieutenant@gmail.com, we will pimp them and send them back to you, hopefully, so you can lose your first 5 games of Infinity at the Infinity Australia Nationals.
Fantastic. I would say that I would leave some links to Loss of Lieutenant in the description, but YouTube doesn't trust me enough with links yet. So they're keeping Fork and Electrical Socket away from Baby.
That's all right. If whoever listens to Dante is probably already matured beyond the Loss of Lieutenant point, so it's fine. We don't want to regress.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, you can find Loss of Lieutenant wherever you get your podcasts. You're also on YouTube, which is pretty exciting. Just Loss of Lieutenant podcast will probably get you there.
It probably will.
All right. Well, thanks again, Tristan, and thanks again for everyone watching. Vanilla O12, Sonya Lacroix, LT duoed with a robot forever.